Shin Jin-seo wins it again for Korea in the 26th Nongshim Cup. This marks his 18th win in a row for this event. If y'all remember last year, he won like a whole bunch of games straight, like 5 games straight or something, against his opponents in the Nongshim Cup, absolutely carrying Korea to the victory. This year, he only had to contribute 2 wins, the last 2 final bosses of Team China. Li Xuanhao and then Ding Hao. I was actually able to catch the Ding Hao game live, and it was a nail biter. Honestly, I don't really know too much about what's going on, but all I see is this AI bar going up and down. Shin Jin-seo is ahead by this many, and then it drops all of a sudden, goes to even, and then Ding Hao starts to lead. It was actually quite a back and forth game. I wish I could understand more easily a lot of the moves that were being played. I can't say I'm at the level that it comes naturally to me to understand exactly what's going on in the board, but it was still interesting. I kind of had it in the background, paying attention to it, like subconsciously while I did other things. But it was truly a nail biter. But I guess in the end, Shin Jin-seo was able to prevail, and Team Korea took the Nongshim Cup yet again. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. And you know, there's a few movies out there with Go being featured in them that I know of. I got a copy of the Divine Move, which is a Korean action thriller movie featuring Go that my fiance got for me at some point, but I haven't been able to watch because, you know, I don't have a DVD player set up really in a convenient way, but we'll get to doing that eventually. And of course, there are the Western movies that feature Go lightly, like A Beautiful Mind that I've talked about on the podcast previously, has that scene to really capture the tension between John Nash and his colleague while they play a game of Go in the park. And it's honestly, I think, one of the most beautifully shot Go scenes. Unfortunately, the Go itself, it's not the most beautiful Go. And then there's Knives Out, which also has a different take, I think. It has like a kind of more rugged take. It's like a very realistic take where you just kind of take out a wobbly board and scramble some stones onto it. I like that. I also remember it was in a sci-fi show called Altered Carbon. I think it's been featured in several kind of sci-fi things. I think it was in Tron as well. But I didn't really get into Altered Carbon. And one thing to note about all these Go features in these movies, besides the one I mentioned called the Divine Move, they're really just decorative, ornamental, if you will. They're not really key to the plot. The films are not at all about Go. I think Knives Out, though, has kind of integrated the game a little more into the characters than the others, but overall, Go is just this kind of mysterious game that appears every now and then in film. Now, that's not as true for the Korean media, and I mention the Korean media because there has been some news. Korea definitely features Go in its dramas and TV and movies and things like that. There was a feature, I haven't really watched it, but there's a show called Reply 1988 that features Go in one of the scenes. But even in Korea, like a lot of the Go, it's kind of an accessory, right? There was another one, Misheng, which actually the title, the Korean drama called Misheng, it means incomplete life, and it's based on a Go player who decides to stop being a professional Go player and decides to work in the office life and his struggles with social awkwardness and things like that. That's an interesting one. Absolutely does not feature much Go at all. There's barely any in it. I still enjoyed what I saw of it. And then there's The Glory that I've also mentioned, which is it features a good amount of Go. There's like scenes here and there where the main character plays Go, but it's more of just a revenge drama. But I'm beating around the bush here. The Match, otherwise known in Korean as 승부. This is a movie that I've been looking forward to for a very, very long time. It's been so long. This movie, The Match, is actually about Go. Out of all those other things that I mentioned today, this one, it is about Go. It's not like a drama that features Go. It's not about something else and then the character plays Go. This is about Go players, and this is about Go. And there are no ghosts in this one, like Sai in Hikaru no Go. This is real life Go. This is a historical biography, kind of like, I don't know what you call it when it's about more than one person. Although I haven't seen the film, so I don't know maybe if it follows the perspective of one person more closely than the other. But this is about Cho Eun-yeon and Lee Chang-ho, or Lee Chang-ho, as you might more familiarly know of him. Cho Eun-yeon was Lee Chang-ho's master. So Lee Chang-ho, being the legend that he is, basically the longest reigning champion in recent Go history, dominated the scene during his era, and was also known as the Stone Buddha for his playstyle, being very calm and methodical, and he's also known as an endgame god. So super stable and just able to win every time kind of style. Cho Eun-yeon was his master. Now, Cho Eun-yeon is not as recognized as Lee Chang-ho, but that is not a name to scoff at either. Cho Eun-yeon is known for pretty much putting Korea on the map. So back then, when Japan dominated the scene, China was in the discussion. Korea was the little brother not really being paid attention to. And all of a sudden, when they play this inaugural In Cup, the first In Cup, Cho Eun-yeon comes out of nowhere and wins it for Korea. And all of a sudden, all the Koreans are into Go. They're all playing Go, and it just sparks this giant wildfire for Korea in the game of Go. So, these two titans, Cho Eun-yeon takes on the Stone Buddha, Lee Chang-ho, as his prodigy and apprentice. And this movie is about the master versus student match between the two. And as soon as this was announced, I was so excited. I wanted to watch it so badly. But I'm going to give you a little recount of the history of what this movie went through before the news that came out recently. This movie came to begin filming at the end of 2020 and completed production in April of 2021. Now, if you remember, this is kind of in the COVID era. So actually, I would say this is like the middle of the actual COVID era. So it must have been very difficult to film. And it was originally planned for theatrical release, but somehow Netflix acquired the rights, and Netflix was going to release it in 2023. And the actors playing in this, portraying Lee Chang-ho and Cho Eun-yeon, Cho Eun-yeon is played by Lee Byung-hun, who is, you might recognize actually. This is someone who is, out of all the Korean actors that you probably don't know, this one you might actually recognize. He was the evil brother in Squid Game. So that's actually pretty cool. And he's a pretty well-respected actor, and I think he looks the part. I think he has somewhat of a similar face structure to Cho Eun-yeon, and I really think that he'll do a good job. I hope so. And then Lee Chang-ho is played by a Korean actor named Yoo Ah-in. Now, this is where the spice level begins to rise for this movie. Yoo Ah-in, the one playing Lee Chang-ho, starts getting into some trouble. In early 2023, allegations of drug use surfaced for this actor, and eventually tested positive for propofol and marijuana. In the States, marijuana, really not a big deal. Legal in many, many states and absolutely not cause for scandal. In Korea, maybe a bit of a different story. They're a little more conservative when it comes to drugs. Propofol, I didn't know what this drug was, but it's a pharmaceutical, and it was actually one of the drugs that played a role in the death of Michael Jackson in 2009. And later on, Yuayin also was tested positive for the presence of cocaine and ketamine in his hair. So drug stuff is really bad in Korea, I guess. I don't know. I'm not super Korean by culture, but so I hear. And advertisers start pulling their sponsorships left and right, and that's when we come into Netflix suspending the release of this movie, The Match, indefinitely. Oh man, it was so sad when I found out about this. We were just all left in the air, like wondering what's going to happen to this movie. Nobody knew where this was going to go. If they were just like, we're not going to release it anytime soon, so sit tight. And we're just kind of like, this is like the only Go movie that we can look forward to in such a long time, and it's just been canceled. What's going on? Of course, many other projects that Yuayin was in was also facing difficulties. They were either pulled or there was another one of his films that had its release delayed. There was another one called Goodbye Earth on Netflix, which actually did premiere on Netflix, but was heavily edited with his screen time cut out a lot. So it didn't do very well, or I don't know, that may or may not be the key reason, but who knows? So this was terrible news for the Go community, looking forward to this film. And Yuayin, terrible news for Yuayin, obviously. He was actually sentenced to a year in prison for this stuff. I mean, this kind of sets the tone for how differently the drugs kind of can be perceived overseas over there. In the States, it's like, I mean, people can have different opinions, but celebrities are generally able to kind of roll through any kind of drug use problems that they have and kind of spin the story to make the public kind of like them. If, you know, it's kind of like not as strict, I would say, as in Korea. But Yuayin in this case was sentenced to a year in prison and fined 2 million Korean won, which converts to about $1,400 US. So prison time, like he was actually in prison for the past few months, and he just recently got released on February 28th through some kind of appellate court system. So he was the sentence was cut short and he was released. All right, so that's great news for him, but what about The Match? What about this movie that we all wanted to see that was supposed to come out a couple years ago? Well, this movie apparently has been acquired by another studio out of the hands of Netflix into the hands of a studio called By4M. So that's BY4M. I believe it's called By4M Studio. And this studio is going to release this movie theatrically March 26th. That is so exciting, except the fact that this is a Korean movie and it's going to be released theatrically in Korea. Well, I have one thing that I am hoping for. There is a Korean movie theater chain called CGV Cinemas around here. I don't know how far the reach goes, but CGV Cinemas is Korean, as I just mentioned, and there's one near my house, and they play a bunch of Korean movies and have English subtitles for them. They also play many movies, American movies with Korean subtitles. My parents go and watch and things like that. Now, speaking of my parents, during the whole controversy, I told my parents about the movie, and I mentioned the actors' names, and they immediately recognized them, and I told them about the situation, about it being canceled, and they told me, oh, yeah, but they're going to release it eventually, and I kind of trusted in that, because they kind of know the culture a little better, and so I just had hopes that this day would come, and it came. And so I'm hoping also that this movie will play at CGV cinemas, and I'll go watch it in theaters. If not, and to those of you who don't have access to a chain like that, hopefully this leads into some kind of streaming service picking it up. Maybe it'll go back into Netflix's hands. I don't know. But at least for us to be able to rent or buy digitally online somehow and watch it, that's all we want, right? Now, I've noticed by reading some of the Korean articles, it seems that by 4M Studio has also released other works with controversial figures in it. And this is something that they're trying to do, which is they're not having Yuain do any press conferences. They're having minimal exposure on his side. And other studios are watching intently as to how this is going to work out for the film, whether this is a good strategy to take when one of the leading actors has some kind of controversy rise up. Because in this movie, the match, he's basically one of the stars, right? Lee Chang-ho, like you can't cut out his role. But weirdly enough, he was largely cut out of the trailer, which is another amazing thing, is that they released a trailer. We got to watch a trailer of the match. Now, this trailer is in Korean, and I wanted to play the trailer on the podcast, but I don't know if you guys speak Korean. Probably not. I wonder if any of you speak Korean. Does maybe one of you speak Korean? So, being that this is an English language podcast, and many of you are actually not native English language speakers, and you speak English as a second language, but the English language is what Starpoint listeners listen to. So I cooked up a little something for y'all. I cooked up a little. Well, why don't you just listen to it?
The final game of the World Professional Go Championship.
Even if I played Go against a god, I don't think I'd lose.
Are you the Go prodigy from Cheonju?
Why do you want to learn from me?
You said your Go is the strongest.
From now on, call me teacher.
Hooray!
In a real match, momentum is 80% of the game. You can't lose momentum. Don't try to learn. Try to win.
I know it's a master-student match, but it's happening so fast. What if Chang-ho actually beats you?
Not for another 10 years.
A historic master-student showdown.
A pro was someone who won, no matter who the opponent was.
Black! Half a point! Lee Chang-ho won!
Am I the teacher in front of the Go board?
Thanks to you, I've been learning a lot lately. That I'm someone who can lose at any time.
Just do as you've been doing. Hiding and holding your breath like this doesn't suit you at all.
As Chang-ho did to me, I now have to challenge Chang-ho.
A brilliant move by Cho Hun-hyun 9 then.
This game of Go is a masterpiece that will be remembered.
There's no other way. This is what a match is all about.
I mean, that was the best I could do. There was a little, some goofiness here and there. I mean, I don't know why the accent seems to change sometimes. The AI doesn't really know how to pick an accent. He starts off super British and then he turns like not so British. But I thought it captured kind of some of the emotion that was in the trailer. So hopefully you enjoyed it at the very least. I may or may not upload a trailer with the video and the dub, synced up and stuff. But that was it for now. When I watched the trailer, I mean, I'm so stoked for this. It looks great. The fact that Go is on the big screen is just a huge win, I think. And I love the fact that this is kind of a period piece, because this is they're wearing the fashion. You can tell by the fashion. It's like from back in the day, I believe in the 80s or so. And it's always like a pleasure for me to watch a movie set in a different time period, trying to emulate that time period. Another thing I noticed in a real quick second in the trailer is that they did this thing visualizing the experience of reading. And the way they do that is they show the Go board and then they make the stones appear like fade in one by one to just kind of show you the reading. And I want to say that was, I'm going to say it was like pioneered by the surrounding game, because if you watch the surrounding game, they did that and it was like such a beautiful thing. It's a nice piece of craftsmanship to show that visualization. Obviously, it's something that you would think of if you're a filmmaker and you're trying to show that. I mean, that's probably something that would come naturally to you. But it really did remind me of how the surrounding game tackled that, and was really something that brought those professional games, the first professional games of the, or I guess qualification games of the AGA to life. Now, as you can tell, I'm really excited about this movie, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I really hope I can see it in theaters, but if not, I just want to be able to see it eventually. It looks great, and the thing is, this kind of stuff is what I live for in the world of Go. I think that sometimes we lose our passion for Go. We get into these ruts where we don't feel like playing. We don't really think that Go is like something that you want to spend time with at the moment. Sometimes we're anxious about what's going to happen if we do play. And maybe sometimes you just kind of step away from the game and you're done with it and you don't really want to play anymore. And that's perfectly fine. Like if that's something that you've decided and you don't really feel like playing it, I don't know why you're listening to the podcast, but if you want to step away from the game and you just want to move on to other things, that's totally fine. But I think a lot of us have this Go soul. It's in our soul, and it's like asking us to play. It's like we have our own sai, Fujiwara no sai, in the back of our the deep recesses of our souls, saying, "Let me play Go. I want to play Go," even when we're not playing. And I think that's what I feel a lot of the time when I'm not playing and I'm not into Go. I'm not really studying Go. I'm not really playing games, and I feel like there's a part of me that's just kind of like, "Yo, you got to get back into it." But it can be hard. It can be hard to do so. And once you stop playing, once you stop studying, it can be hard to get the ball rolling. It can be kind of a struggle. It can kind of feel like work or homework, or it feels like you're just not good enough anymore and you're afraid of finding out how rusty you are. But you can use things like this, little things that pop up in your life that remind you of Go, to reignite your passion for Go. And I think that's something that we all have to do. We have to feed our passion by looking out for things that can inspire us. Another thing that I've been doing lately, an update for you guys, the suggestion that Eric Lee wrote in about studying pro games, about memorizing pro games and then reviewing them via some video that's already reviewed it. Well, I actually went and did it. I memorized 150 moves of that Chejong versus Nakamura Sumire SGF or game. And I think it's the most I've ever memorized a pro game. And I really, really enjoyed it. I really liked going over the game multiple times, trying to get every single move down. And the tricky parts, the tanukis. Oh my goodness, Chejong likes to tanuki. And obviously, any kind of co-fight that happens is really difficult to memorize because it's not in sequence and it's just kind of like here and there. But once I kind of got used to those, and then really pondering over the moves I didn't understand, as I memorized this game more and more, the more it was absorbed into my being and the more I could see the game. And I realized that doing that to pro games really helps you kind of pay attention to all the things that you need to pay attention to, even though you may not understand everything that you're memorizing. When you first look at any given pro game, it can be very overwhelming, and you just kind of skip through it, and you just kind of like put your hands up and say, I don't know what's going on, and like, I don't know what is what in this. But when you memorize a game, you're kind of forced to really absorb every stone that is being played. And just by doing that, I found I was able to think about things more and really put my own thoughts into the moves that I was memorizing. And when I watch the video, it's so much easier. If you don't know, Eric Lee also linked a video to a review of the game by a pro with the channel Yoon's Baduk Cafe. And watching the video, I didn't have to think about the moves at all because like I had memorized them. So going through, all I needed to think about was what she was saying about what was the moves. Now, one thing I did learn is that it raised more questions for me because there were some questions that were unanswered, and I was really curious. So I might do some extra investigation on that. But another thing that I found was interesting when I memorized this game, I feel sometimes that pro games, I don't feel super invested, but by the time I memorized the 150 moves, I wanted to keep going. I wanted to know what happened. I was now invested in what was going on in this game, and I wanted to know what happened next. And so memorizing was a really good way to really implant the moves of the game into my brain. The parts I understood, the parts I did not understand, all of it at once. And the fact that I was able to absorb this game and feel more at home with it, it made me want to play more. It made me want to study more. And just by doing this thing, I felt like I brought more of my passion for Go to life. And it feels like it's building more and more, especially with something like the movie that's coming out. I really like that, and I want to keep going. And the next thing I want to try is, because what I've learned by doing this is that it's helped me really absorb the moves. So I'm thinking, what if I memorize my own game? Now, that's not something I ever do. But what if I looked at one of my games that I failed at, memorized it? Would it help me meditate and think about my flaws in that game more? And would it help me improve more? I'll let you know if I ever get around to doing that and whether that yields any results for me. But the point I want to make here is, if we look out for these moments and we're positively reacting to moments of inspiration for Go, it can help us really get back into it. Because this is something that's a soft skill, if you might want to call it that, in Go, is to try to keep your passion for it alive. Because that's definitely needed if you ever want to be good at it. So one way to do that is to look at all these things that come into your life as inspiration, like Starpoint, for example, and take that as a means to reignite your passion and get back in the game and feed that Go spirit of yours to let them play the Go that they want to play. In addition to memorizing some of my own games, which I'll give a try, we'll see if it's any good, I do still want to also memorize more pro games. It's just so fun to me. I think it's one of my favorite things to do, and I think I just really got to follow the things that I really enjoy doing, and that's one of the things I really enjoy doing. I love memorizing pro games. I don't know what it is. It's the repetitive, meditative nature, the fact that sometimes I use the real board and stones. One tip, though, if you're one of those people who try to memorize pro games using real stones, like that can be fun, but I found a lot more success once I let myself use a digital SGF editor, because it's just so much faster. And one other thing is that Sabaki, the SGF editor that I use, actually has a guess mode where if you enable it, it'll allow you to guess the move, and then if you get it wrong, it'll highlight a certain part of the board in which that move lies, and then you can try to guess again. Now, I don't really use it. I just kind of click around, and I see that if I click the wrong move, a variation branches out. But what I did was, for my final exam, I did a real board thing. But it's a little harder to track, because once I put them on the real board, I don't want to be like recording every move on the SGF editor while I'm doing the real board. So I don't really double check my answer. So technically my final exam was to actually draw out an SGF from scratch of the game, 150 moves, and then compare the two and then see that I made all the right moves. That was my final exam, and I succeeded in 150 moves. So it's really cool that I was able to do that, and I want to keep doing it. And I mean, if I can improve with that way, that's great. But right now, I guess I'm just gonna hope for that, but I'm mostly gonna do it for my own enjoyment. It's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is that big open areas are valuable. I don't know how to stress this enough. I mean, I feel like I see a lot of DDK games happening where people just refuse to play in big open green pastures, not just in the opening. Now, I've said this tip before regarding the opening, but even past the opening, people rather would like start a cut and fight and just kind of get into a kerfuffle senselessly instead of taking this wide open space. If you see on the board a wide open space, that's calling to you. You better go and stake your claim there because it's a big move. Now, when I say big open space, try to think of open space as space that is near the ground, like the first line. So not really low to the ground, like not really by the first line, but like third or fourth line areas around the board that have a lot of space with no stones around it. I'm not talking about like, oh, Tengen has the most open space, let's play there. I'm talking about like, you got to look at the Go board as like a weird perspective of the sky, and all the edges of the board is the ground, and those are the pastures. Right? All the edges of the board are the pastures. And if all those pastures have not been claimed, then try to take that claim. Those are huge moves. So don't start senseless fights and just take those big open space moves. And now it's time for listener mail. Potential Dev NB writes, a cool idea for a baduk variant would be a baduk, but you can move your stones one space horizontally or vertically. That is definitely an interesting idea. So I assume you'd be able to put your stones down, but also be able to move them. So I would assume you would take one or the other. You'd either move or place a stone. Now, I think it's hard for me to understand the implications of that. As a simple, the thing is that with this, any capture that is possible by moving your stone would also be possible by placing a stone, so it doesn't allow for more captures necessarily. But one thing it does allow is definitely creating some kind of life or killing through that. Has anyone tried that? That sounds actually really interesting. I'd be down to try that. Thanks for the interesting Go variant. Wampy writes, I was thinking about the chess variant, where you start with black and white pieces on the same side of the board, and you race to the other side. I've never heard of that, actually. Maybe a Go variant would be that you each start at one end of the board, maybe a 3-3 point, and then race to the other side. Rules may be that you can't do more than one row jump from any other stone on the board. You lose if you aren't the first to the end, or a stone of yours is captured. Haven't tried, thinking as I'm typing. That, you know what, that kind of reminds me just of Chinese checkers. The star game, where you like have all your marbles on one side of the board, and you try to get to the other side. But interesting idea. I love the creativity that starts to happen when people think about Go variants. Thanks for writing in, Wampy. Nightwalker450 writes, I've been meaning to print out a set of cards for Cards Go. I've got a friend who prefers a bit more random chance in games, and this might be a fun variant to try. Thanks for writing in, Nightwalker450. I'll link you guys the link to Cards Go. So I think I've seen this before. There is a set of printable cards. It's on Sensei's library, and it's called Dango. I guess it's called Dango, and it's just a bunch of cards. I don't know exactly how to play it, but there's like a lot of shapes on the cards, and I'm guessing you can just play the shapes as you get the cards. So it has like definitely more of a casual board game feel to it. So if anyone's played that, I'd love to hear about it as well. Thanks for writing in. Andy G2G writes, I think a better description than Infinite Go for Toroidal Go is Borderless Go or Donut Go. The playing space is still confined, just not by borders. I think Borderless Go is probably a good one. I think Toroidal Go, probably, we got a whole bunch of mathematicians and programmers in this that I feel like a lot of the Go players will know what that means. But yeah, it's also something that I haven't tried, but Seems very interesting. Thanks for writing in. Frambago writes, "Hi Justin, finally caught up with all the episodes. Congratulations, you're with me here now in real time." Continuing, so a variant that I think is a must as a brain-bending, somewhat like 3D Go, is Quantum Go. In short, it's like normal Go, but you pick 2 or 3 moves in your turn, and those moves create 2 different board states that coexist with a 50% probability. Then your opponent makes 2 moves, and you create 4 different board states with 25% probability each. Okay, you either need a lot of Go boards for this or a good program. I think I've heard of this before. I'm going to keep reading to find out more about this. In this variant, multiple stones can exist in the same spot. The visual online really helps to understand this. Okay, so I see that you've linked something. Whenever there is a capture, there might have been the capture or not, depending on a probability of the stones actually being there. This is a decision point where a random board state is chosen among all existing board states. If the capture exists in the selected state, then all states without capture are discarded. If the capture does not exist, every state with the capture is discarded. I have never played this, but I would love to. That sounds really interesting, but also difficult to implement. One thing that's great about Go variants is that just thinking about Go variants is interesting. Like, this whole quantum thing, and might I suggest another alternative name for Quantum Go, Schrodinger's Go, which would be, I feel like an apt name for that. And then finally closing with, thanks for the podcast, I love it. I'm just a bit sad that I caught up and I don't know what to listen to while biking, smiley face. Well, I'm guessing you bike more than once a week, so unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait for the Mondays, because that's when Star Pouring comes out. But I'm so glad that you caught up, and it's great that you've listened to the entire catalog. It's an impressive feat for sure at this point. And then Framba also linked a video tutorial on how to play Quantum Go, and also discovered some on the board playable versions. So I will link both of those in the description as well. But there's a little note about the playable version. Slightly different rules and 0 randomness, which might be even better. Oh, so this isn't is this a playable version? I thought it was a PDF. Oh, okay, on the board playable version. I see. Okay, I thought it was a link to like a site where you could play this, but it's like it's just a rule set that is a practical way to play on the board. So. That's Quantum Go. I'd love to, like, with all these Go variants, I'd love to know if anybody's tried them and what their experience with it was. Thanks for writing in, Framba. And Ake607 writes, with some friends, we came up with our own Go variants, and I'm glad to share. They're not really serious, they're just things that we came up with on the spot for fun. Tetris Go. Instead of placing a stone, you may place 4 in the shape of a Tetris piece. You can do it once per Tetris piece. I think this one, you guys may have independently invented something that was invented already, because I think another commenter also talked about this. Magnetic Go. When placing a stone, the stones on the same line and column move. If they're a different color of the stone placed, they're attracted by it and will touch it. If they're the same color, they are repelled and moved away until they meet the edge of another stone. Oh my goodness. Have you tried that one? That one sounds crazy. Bi-Go. 2 pairs of opponents play on the same Goban. It looks like Ren-Go, but a player doesn't have to alternate with his teammate. A player has an assigned opponent, and together they play at their own rhythm. It allows 2 stones of the same color to be placed at the same time. That is so strange, though. Okay, I guess you're saying that these are not really serious. That would definitely be like a fun little activity to try, but oh my goodness, that just sounds chaotic to me. Flick Go. The stones aren't gently placed, but thrown with a flick. Hey, now, I told you guys about how you're supposed to treat your Go equipment. You're not supposed to flick your stones. But the aspect of having like a skill shot to determine where your stone goes, that's also interesting. Maybe with a good set of like cheapo plastic stones. And I'm wondering, if you flick a stone onto another stone, and that other stone moves, is it moves to the new position, and then if that new position is a capture or makes the group dead, like, is that enabled? That's and then the next one is one-eyed go. Stones can never be placed somewhere where it would have no liberties, even if it would capture another group. In this variant, Ko cannot be taken, and one eye is enough to live. I've always thought about this, like how uninteresting would Go be if it was just for one eyes? If one eye was enough to live. Because the simplest the rules could get is for one eye life to be, like just having one eye and just having the rule of you can't put a stone where it would be captured, and then taking out the asterisk of like except when it captures something else would be like the first, like Go version 1, I think. If I was inventing Go, that would be my first version. And then I would get into an argument with a friend and like, I can play it there because I can capture it. And then we would change the rules to allow that and then realize that you need 2 eyes to live. So I'm wondering, I'm assuming that one-eyed Go is not as nearly as fun or deep as two-eyed Go. But I've always wanted to try it. And then finally, the last variant listed here by Ake is Uno Go. Each time a player captures, they get to add a rule to the game. Can be played with or without alcohol. That's a good one. I like that one. That's definitely like a party Go. And I can imagine like you adding rules that unrelated to the game. Like every time you make a capture, you have to say whoopla or something like that. Thanks for all the fun ideas. And then 13 Scoops writes, if you get a chance to play it, my favorite Hikaru no Go game is Hikaru no Go 3 for the GameCube. Oh my goodness, there's a GameCube version? Graphics are nice and well animated. It has a story mode, 200 Sumego, ranging from very easy to very challenging, and a local versus mode with plenty of unlockable boards, stones, and characters to play with. Unfortunately, like every other Hikaru no Go game, it is in Japan only, so navigating menus will be the trickiest part. Well, it'll be easier to point my phone at a TV screen and check the translations than to hold a Nintendo DS in one hand and then my phone in the other hand and hover over it, which is what I'm doing with my current Hikaru no Go game for Game Boy Advance. I would honestly rank Capture Go, Toroidal Go, and One Color Go all S tier. Oh, okay, the only one I might disagree with is Capture Go. I don't know about Capture Go. Continuing, the interesting thing about Capture Go, if the win condition is to be the first player to capture at least one stone, is that it simplifies life and death significantly, since in most cases a group can live with only a single eye as long as it's just 2 spaces big. The opponent can't throw in since their stone will be captured first. Okay, so it's like kind of related, and maybe I'm not giving Capture Go enough credit, because what does high-level Capture Go even look like? Because high-level Dawn players just play Capture Go to teach people and then they never play it again. So I'm wondering if you put the biggest, like the best players and pit them against each other in a game of Capture Go, would it be an interesting game? I might have missed something there. Another one of my favorite variants that you didn't mention, I can't remember the name of it, prohibits playing a move that would create a group of exactly X stones, e.g. can't make a group of 3 stones, 4 stones, 5 stones, or any other number you choose. I've usually picked 3 or 4. This completely changes the way the game is played tactically. One of the great things about variants like that, which change the actual tactics of the game, is that players of different skills can suddenly find themselves on a much more even playing field. Yeah, I think that like maybe some of us are better at adapting and learning new rule sets and figuring out the key mechanics of a game than others, and so someone who's very experienced with traditional Go may just be really good at Go, but they're not as good at adapting to other rules, so they may find themselves at a disadvantage. This variant, though, seems like a pretty advanced variant and very interesting, but something I would say I would try with someone more skilled and more comfortable and familiar with the game. But I would love to try that. There's so many variants to try, but the thing is, when I sit down with the Go board, I'll probably just play regular Go, which is probably why a lot of us don't play a lot of these variants. But they're just so fun to think about. And then finally, I wish variants were more accessible online. Rengo and different board sizes are about the only variants you can expect to find on servers like KGS and OGS, but they should include all kinds of wacky variants like these just for fun. Why not? It could help attract more players or keep players interested when they don't feel like playing serious normal 19x19 games. Amen to that. I think especially, you know, OGS being the kind of modern server that it is and able to kind of adapt to things should allow for these. Maybe, you know, obviously there's some concerns about matchmaking. You don't want to split people off, but as pure custom games with your friends, I think in-house stuff should, you know, I would love more variants. One Color Go, I think, is probably the way to start. It's like the simplest way to vary the Go game. So thank you guys. Thanks to all of you for all these amazing Go variant ideas. I think they're very, very interesting and fun to think about. And I hope to play a lot of them one day with somebody who wants to play Go variants with me. But for the question of the week this week, what did you think of the Match trailer? Are you excited for the movie? Is that something you're interested in, or you just like to play Go? If you want to know, if you want to share your thoughts on this question, or if you have a Go story you want to share, or you want to ask me a question, you can comment on YouTube or the Reddit post for this episode, or email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe, and if you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very special thank you to James B. and Tristan for supporting Starpoint. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk. That's KO-FI. Or you can go to Starpoint Store and get some Starpoint merch at store.starpointpaduk.com. There's something that happens in my brain whenever I play Go. You know, I can't help it. It's this inner voice that's always there telling me about all the moves that I'm going to play as I'm reading them out. But when I find a winning sequence and I fully read out all the moves that I need to read out for that sequence to win or kill a group or something like that, and read out my opponent's demise, it sounds a little something like this.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
But I'm not a Go player.
What career? Look. You got a point right here. It is. Boom. Bam. Bop. Bada bop. Boom. Pow.
Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.